let's just start from the now, if there's anything you all want to include, that's fine, but let's just start just briefly with some of the beliefs of the of the Branch Davidians, time before before you became famous, so to speak. Unfortunately famous, but
well, we take the Bible as our creed. We believe that the Bible is basically literal, both the Old Testament and the New Testament, going to be literally fulfilled, especially the prophecies that talk about the last days. The only thing that we do not take literal would be where the Bible uses symbolic terms, beasts and things like that, which have an interpreted meaning. Some of our basic beliefs were that the law of God is still in effect. God's people should honor that law. Many churches, of course, believe that it was nailed to the cross, but we hold that it continues on to this day. We also believe that...
Well, let me just interrupt for a minute. I also believe that.
Okay.
So I assume then you all don't eat pork and shellfish.
No.
Right.
Saturday Sabbaths. And the whole thing.
If God says it's unclean, we feel it's unclean.
Right.
He has a
Okay.
reason for
I agree with you, and I've been following them laws for about 3 years myself. But go ahead, Clive.
Another one of our basic beliefs is the fact that many of the prophecies of the Bible talk about God intervening in the affairs of men and bringing the world as we know it basically to an end, not doing away with it by devastation, but inserting his presence into this world and beginning to set up a kingdom. It tells us that in Daniel and in Revelation that God is going to come down basically and fight against the nations that have fought against his people, and he's eventually going to take the territory that they have usurped over the years and give it back to those that he calls his. And so that's been a major doctrine of ours for quite a number of years, since the mid-30s, that God would establish a kingdom beginning in the Holy Land with Jerusalem.
One thing that I happen to be a believer in up to a point, and that is that the other side of the coin, the Antichrist forces, will establish his kingdom, which I think has already been in place for quite a long time now. And we hear talk of this new world order that we talk about frequently on this show. And I know that I believe that you all have some feelings about that as well. This one world system that's being set up.
Right. We've known quite a bit about the overall picture of a one world order. We may have looked at it perhaps differently, not perhaps so politically as you all, but we've looked at it from a biblical point of view, and we see beasts illustrated in Revelation that would dominate the world and cause men to receive a mark and to obey, otherwise they're going to be killed, things like that. And of course, when you try to read and study these prophecies, you run into names and places and dates and so forth that back it up in history and in the affairs that are going on in the world today.
Beginning a briefing of reporters now in Waco, and let's go to that line.
The FBI did not return fire. Gas was inserted using a Mark V delivery system secured to a boom. Also, non-pyrotechnic delivery systems were utilized to insert CS gas. The occupants in the compound were advised, "This is not an assault. Do not fire. If you fire, your fire will be returned. We are introducing non-lethal tear gas. Exit the compound now and follow instructions." Also, non-pyrotechnic delivery systems were utilized to insert CS gas. Come out now and you will not be harmed. You will be provided medical attention. Come out and you will be treated professionally. No one will be injured. Submit to proper authorities. No one will be injured. submit to proper authorities.
That would dominate the world and cause men to receive a mark and to obey, otherwise they're going to be killed, things like that. And of course, when you try to read and study these prophecies, you run into names and places and dates and so forth that back it up in history and in the affairs that are going on in the world today.
Catherine, do you have anything to add to any of the beliefs?
Well, what came to my mind is the fact that when you read Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel 28, you find out that Satan is going to appear as a man. And people are going to look at him and say, is this the one that's made all that trouble for us? And he's going to be in a position that he's never been in before.
So you yourself also see this one world order?
Oh yes, that is something that's been going on since 1776, and people don't realize it. In fact, it goes farther back than that. It seems that in Solomon's time, who was a very wise man, he had the principles of the New World Order, but he was looking at it from God's perspective. The New World Order, in many respects, are following the things that you would read in the scriptures, that there will be one person that you are accountable to, and whatever is given as a law, you will have to follow. And of course, that's their ideas also. But of course, they're looking at it from man's point of view. And yet the Bible says, cease ye from man, whose breath is in his nostrils. Who is he?
Very important to our effectiveness, I think.
Let's go to New York City. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi.
Hello, Ms. Burkhalter. I want to commend you for the magnificent work you're doing. My name is Pierre Lorsi. I'm a trial attorney, and I've used your publication to win some Haitian 243H, the asylum cases. Now, I'm so lucky. I got right through to the Secretary of the Army 4 years ago, and this is the second time I called, and I'd like to ask you the same question and the commentary. It's kind of my solution to the whole thing. And if I may have a follow-up, but it's a big question. Here's my solution. I don't know if anybody else is working on it, but I would do away with all national armies and have one international army drafted throughout the world, totally mixed. The purpose of it would be to enforce the findings of the World Court in Hague. I would also have all the judges internationally elected. Some of the problems giving up the sovereignty and are relatively obvious, but it seems to me with the New World Order, disarming, that this should be an ideal to work for. Is anybody doing it, or what are your thoughts on that?
All right.
Mr. Lorsi, with respect, I don't think that's a viable program for activists to work for. I think that given just the nature of the world system, and in our own country, for example, the hostility or the perception of hostility to even having the United States participate in the most minimal way in international peacekeeping, that the very idea of dissolving armies right and left is, while it is attractive in a utopian sense, is not a realistic program, and I think would be a waste of people's times. However, people of goodwill who share your goals and mine do have some things they could be working on. I think the United States should be taking the lead at the United Nations